Okay, right,
so,
nice, brilliant. New venue
today. Bloody hell, we've upped our game, I think.
Yeah,
upped our game.
Upped it a little bit.
Bloody hell.
The budget's got bigger.
So today we're going to talk about. Well, we're going to do a little mini series, aren't we, in between some of our guest series about each other?
Yeah,
and I've drawn a short straw.
Yeah, we are going to scrutinise you today.
Yeah, God, not too hard. You know, I've got I've got divorce going on and all that, so I can't.
We want to bring all that up. Yeah,
that too much, but So
we won't ask about
let's start as we're going, because I know what's doing my heading, but what's doing your head? Who's starting?
Do you want me to go? I've got mine's on the tip of my tongue. Right? I want to talk about this, right? I want to talk about this. I'll tell you what's doing my heading, and it has been for as long as I can remember, but I think it's really getting to me. Adverts. Right, adverts.
Mate,
you know what I'm talking about, right? So I can't watch a program that's got adverts in it. I can't do it. I don't know why, right? And when I'm channel surfing, I'll watch it, and you get deal or no deal.
Are you getting around that? Paying £15 a month for like Prime and then getting an advert.
Well, this is the thing, because that for me Netflix was amazing, because now I can watch some programs and there's no adverts, right? I like that. Right?
Oh well, that's where you're wrong though, because it depends on the subscription.
Yeah, but I know they've changed it. They got a cheaper one now.
Yeah, I got the cheaper one.
But I've always been on the 10 quid a month. I've always been on that since it started. So, but Prime does made him, right? I'll tell you what I did last night, right? This is what does made him, right? So I made my dinner, right? Sat down with my old lap tray, right? Got the old box on, right? Takes a little while to connect to the old router. So by now I've eaten some, right? I get onto Prime. I think, what am I going to watch? I find something, right? I press play. It goes, your program will start after these short messages. Short messages, 2 minutes. I've eaten half my pasta now, right? Then I find out I don't actually like this program, right? I think this ain't what I thought it was. So I come out, start another one, and guess what happens? Be back after these minutes. By the time it started, I'd finished.
Funny enough, Mark, I was going to start with a similar thing, but I'm not now. But I had this thing, right? I've been watching ITVX, whatever it's called. That streaming service, ITVX, right? And there's a program called Pennyworth. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I've
really
heard of it.
Good actor guy, and it's pre-Batman, so but it's not like superheroes. It's the guy that played Alfred, who was his butler.
Oh yeah,
and it's his ex-SCS. It's a good, fantasy kind of program. But anyway, that's not the point. The fucking advert comes on. Yeah, the advert comes on, and then on ITVX, this is why it freezes.
I've had that on X, yes.
And then you can't get it off, and then you go,
honestly,
and you go on the forums, and it happens to everyone.
Yeah,
and it's like ITV are just going, well,
and then I'm sort of sat there thinking, should I switch off now? Or will it just load in like 5 more seconds?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And I've got
this
real dilemma as to whether I need to switch off and go back to it, whether that's going to be quicker than just waiting it out. But it just freezes. So it doesn't. I think if you waited it out, it just wouldn't ever load.
We're going to be talking about business today and stuff like that. I mean, CEO of ITVX, get pull your finger out.
Do you know what?
Get a proper streaming thing going. Because it's not just me, it's everyone.
I thought I had the best idea ever, right? So why don't they put the advert on there? And they have started doing it. I have noticed it now, right? And I thought, do you know what? They need to do this across every platform, right? When you press pause on anything that you're watching, that's when they should show an advert picture.
Yeah, I agree. Right. That's a great idea.
Yeah, they've started to. But they don't do it on everyone.
No, you're right. They don't do it on every.
But they should do that way more, because that is surely the viewing experience is 10 times better if you do that, because you're going to see it when you walk away, and then you're going to see it when you come back.
But what about my answer to this? And that is actually a really good one. I'm going to tell you something about what the Chinese have proposed, by the way, right? The actual answer, I think, is product placement. Why are we still not doing that? Were you watching your EastEnders? I don't watch EastEnders, but you're watching
the Truman Show,
right? And he could be having his pint of John Smith or whatever.
Yeah, speaking about that, I'm just going to take a sip of my Bucks.
Yeah, so Highland aren't tuning in, if they want to do a sponsorship,
What have I got? Interpump Fluid Solutions. But that's what I think.
That's done your name. What about you, Charlie?
Mate, to be fair, mine was actually adverts as well.
You can't both of you copy me.
Yeah. No, I haven't copied. I've got something different.
I'll have to switch it now, because I did have a plan B as well.
Right, you're going to have to play that, I think.
So basically, mine was, right, I've been trying to organise a stag do.
Oh, right.
Oh,
Yeah. Have you ever tried to organise a stag
I've done a
do?
few, yeah.
Oh my God. Like how flipping pain. Do you know what? I'm not even the best man, right?
But nobody remembers it anyway, so don't worry about it. Just
Well,
turn
I
up
tell you
somewhere.
what, it's not that, right? It's not the fact that, so just turn up somewhere. That's, what we've done, right? So I managed to, so what happened was the stag, he added everyone to a chat. There's 25 to 30 people going on this stag do. Insane, right? There's so many people, I thought.
Where you going?
We're going to go. So he wanted to do something different. So he didn't want like a typical stag do. So initially what we did.
So no Prague?
He wanted, we're not, well, because we're going away for his wedding. So we're going to Barcelona for his wedding. So he just wanted it in the UK, right? So we thought, he didn't want like a traditional
But the
stag
wife's
do.
in charge already.
He wanted, yeah.
You know you got trackers in that shit, right?
He wanted to hire a house, right? Like a house, have a massive like get together, massive.
What, big
pizza
house
up.
party?
Yeah, big house party. Get a hot tub going. Get a like games rooms, like DJ, everything like that in there, right? Okay. That's what he wanted initially. I thought, okay, that's a good idea. So we started doing that. Anyway, everyone then starts like getting on their high horse and like putting in their 2 pence, stuff like that. Bear in mind, I'm literally taking on the role of the best man who's gone AWOL in the meantime. Normally it's the best man that like puts it together, right? Isn't that's tradition? It's normally the best man. So I'm like thinking, well, if I don't get cracking and do something, then nothing's actually going to get done at all. So I figured I'd sort of get out there and start like working out where to go. Anyway, no one's happy with the house idea. I'm thinking, well, it's not your stag. That's what stag wanted. So it's like it or lump it. But then we all sort of figured that he wanted to go to a festival. And he wanted like a house as well. So most massive houses, I know he's not fussy, is he? So most massive houses, they're in the middle of nowhere. So anyway, we found this festival in Brighton, which it's not gay pride or anything like that. Actually, might want to cut that bit out. It's like a music festival there. So we've got this flat that we're going to. We should have a really good time. But the bottom line is everyone seems to be like unhappy with one decision or another. And I'm thinking, well, hang on. I've inherited the role, right?
Because you put it, them WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
You put it out to
WhatsApp.
committee, mate.
Yeah.
What you want to turn around and say.
This is what we're doing.
Well, we're going
That's
there.
what I did.
You're going there. And if you don't like it,
that's what
don't turn up.
Who's in and who's out? Yeah. The trouble you got is you can't. I've noticed this with stag when you're organising stag things. And some of my mates are the same, right? One of my mates, he and some of them are a bit brutal, right? One of my weddings, right? Lee knows who he is, right? He said, I'm sorting it out, right? And to be fair, he sorted it out, right? Yeah. The hotel was a dive, absolute dive, right? Where it was good, and how we got there by trains. It was, I think he didn't tell anyone. He just said, I'm sorting it out. Are you in or out? And they went, I'm in.
Well,
and
that's
he just went, I need 85 quid deposit then. And they went, oh, what are we doing? Oh, you'll find out.
That's what I said. I said that, I said, look, quit the bullshit. This is what we're doing.
As long as you say, look, we're going, we're staying in the UK, so that's
costing this much,
or we're going to Ibiza, that's it.
Yeah, So anyway, that's done my head in a little bit, but it is what it is. I think, especially if I was a stag, I'd be. If I was the best man, it'd feel better because it's like, right, this is what I'm doing, but I'm actually just taking on the responsibility. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like I'm being nice. I'm trying to do a favour to him. Do you know what I mean? So, mad. But there we go. That's
I feel your pain. I think that's really good of you to step up, Charlie.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I appreciate that.
Even though I'm not on it, I appreciate it.
Yeah. You've had a few stag days in your time, haven't you?
I've probably had more stag days than you've had birthdays.
With you being a stag. Make sure that's...
it's funny though, because people actually say, they go, where'd you go to a stag do? And I think, Cambridge, Cardiff, Bournemouth. Oh yeah, okay, we better stop there. I could probably do the alphabet, to be honest.
Yeah, so if you got any recommendations,
a few countries, haven't you? You've gone, cool. Have we all been in the UK, have they?
The stag do's have been in the UK, yeah. So maybe, obviously, I've got another wedding coming up. So maybe Prague's on the cards.
Yeah.
What's the programme where the guy goes? He's at a show. Have you seen that? It's a comedy. And he goes, oh, I'm the best man. I just thought I'd just see what you're doing, what you do for stag do's. And the guy shuts the door.
That was Gavin and Stacey.
Is it? And he goes, one word, Prague.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
And Prague used to be a lovely city, because they kept all that kind of stag boy sex. They used to have a place called Sex Park. Right? And literally, but it was outside of the city,
right?
And those people who wanted to partake, there's strip bars, there's all sorts of going on over there. But it's coming to into the town a little bit more now, the last time I was in there, because great, lovely, beautiful city park.
It's supposed to be a lot.
It's not as cheap as it used to be. It used to be like, them days of 10p a pint is absolute rubbish.
Yeah, it's like £3 now a pint, which is.
I've heard it's picking up. The tourism's picking up. The Spanish don't want us no more, so people are going.
I went to a football game in Prague. I went to a football game in Prague.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, and I was like, so I was wearing a jacket at the time, right? And I was so stupid because it was absolutely freezing. And I bought like the finished jacket and my jacket froze. It froze.
What, was it like a shell suit or something?
Yeah, no, it just must have got a bit wet and it froze, man. It was like, it was so cold.
Did you be like almost like a bit of cardboard?
Yeah, basically. Well, no, because I'd been even more cold, I guess. But Prague is great. Prague's such a good night out, to be fair.
Yeah, Estonia's good as well. Tallinn.
Estonia. Yeah, I'd love to go there.
Tallinn. All them Eastern Europe. I like a bit of warmth now if I'm going to go. Like, we're going to do a boys one in a month or so, and it's got to be, it was all listed down, and it was like
Folkestone.
No, it was like Seville or somewhere hot. Because like we've done all the European ones, and they're freezing.
Do you ever try like that absinthe in Prague? Did you ever try absinthe? Apparently, there's one that like makes you bloody like hallucinate or something.
There's probably all.
I like the way you say that, like you haven't had it, Charlie.
Someone told me.
It's got a little disclaimer along the back here, along the bottom. If you read to the bottom, it says, just say no, kids.
So what's doing your head in then, Matt?
Fucking hell. Honestly, right, I've had a time of it with a simple thing.
Oh yeah.
Just a little bit of customer. I don't know if it's customer service, but it's can anyone do their job? I'm going to throw it out there. Can anyone do their actual job?
I'll do mine.
Right? So I had a problem with my driving licence that when they sent my driving licence, for some reason, they decided to change my date of birth. Okay?
What?
So I rang them up and she said, what you got to do there, quite simple, just give us your passport number, write a little note, passport number, and we'll draw down the information and we'll change it. And it just so happened that I'd moved houses, so I needed to change my thing anyway. So I went to the post office and had to do two things now. So I got the form, changed my address, paid them the £20 postal order, believe it or not, you've got to use now. And you're saying the idea that you can do things online is just ridiculous when you've got a situation like this. You can't do anything. You should be able to go on there and say, look, my date of birth's wrong. So I write a letter. I thought, I'm not going to just put my passport number on there. I'm going to be double-barreled, belts and braces, and copy of my passport. Yeah, bang. Copy of my driving licence, everything filled in, no problem. So then they send it back to me.
What, all of it?
All of it.
Yeah.
And say you need some photographs. Now, you just told me I don't need the photographs because what we're going to do is draw the photograph down from the passport. Because if you do it online, that's what they do.
Yeah.
No problem. Yeah? So, can't work that out. And if you want to do it online, do it online. But I can't do it online because there's a problem with the licence, yeah? So, I do this, send it back, another letter, put all the information back in, another £3, whatever, send it back to them. And very efficiently, within 2 weeks, they send me the new driving licence. Yeah, with a new photograph, shiny new me. Don't look like because when you take your glasses off, I look like a bit of a Romanian terrorist. You know what I mean? And guess what?
What?
Date of birth, exactly the same.
You were still wrong?
Still wrong.
Oh, my God.
Was it
I ring up today and she goes,
Was you older or younger?
No, it's maybe a year older, but it's you can't. You've got to have your name. The date of birth's the most important part in your license because when you try and do a license check or insurance, you've got to put your national insurance number in. It don't match because your national insurance number's for 1 year and this is for another year, so they can't find you. So I ring them up this morning, funny enough, in the car park here, and she's a lovely lady. You know what I mean? What I'll do, I'll get you the address of the right people to email you. Have I got the email? No, I've got the email.
Oh my God.
But this is what it is.
But you do everything, don't you? You do everything you're told. Put everything in there. They've had me £20,
Yeah.
And someone has just I don't know. They've just not read the letter.
How can they even change them things? Surely there should be the system where you can't change a date of birth.
It's a data input error, isn't it? That's what it is.
What the hell?
Someone's still going, typing on exactly that.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely dumb and nutty.
They probably do.
I thought you
This is
looked,
taken like with
today.
post and stuff like that. Exactly. I'm a year older. Post and everything else like this. You know, it's taken me like over 6 weeks to get this sorted out.
But it's gonna have you noticed, Al? And I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what the problem is. It's not customer service as such. It's
not customer service. The person doing the job.
No one takes the responsibility to take it on. That's what it is. Yeah. And you see that in all walks of life, right? So you've rung up with a problem, right? And the people you're ringing, they've got, if you was to write down the tasks that they do, that's what they do. Anything outside of that, like date of birth's wrong, right? Don't know.
But that was the whole point of the bloody thing. It weren't about changing my licence for a new picture. It was about getting the date of birth right. It's not hard, is it? There's a full letter.
I'm pretty sure when I changed my driver's licence over, I'm pretty sure they asked me to do a new photo and they just used the old photo as well. Like, so I put a new photo in there, they used the old one. I must have thought, this one looks a bit better.
Well, I know someone, I'm going back a few years now, right? I knew someone who renewed his licence. And then he showed it to me afterwards, right? And I don't know what had happened here, but they had enabled a load of categories. He had categories for class 1, class 2, everything. And he said, and he was saying, do you think I should, should I keep one of them or not?
Yeah, jump in an HGV and go for it.
And I don't know what the outcome was, right?
Drivers, aren't we?
Well, they just made one like that. It just shows you how Donald Trump can make things like that. So can So
what do you think would have happened then if he'd have jumped in an HGV and then he was like, I've just thought that's how it worked. Like, he weren't to know. He just got his license back with his HGV on there. What if he just said,
in theory, he's not competent, is he? In theory,
no.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well,
listen. Are you prepared? That's the answer.
I don't like to be prepared. Otherwise, it's scripted, and we're not scripted.
No, we're not. So look, let me set the scene for the listeners, the people that are watching. Right. So today, part of the first one of the series, we're going to be interviewing you, Mark Kennedy, to find out a little bit about your world, where you are now, where you were, where you've come from. So for the people that are listening that don't know you or maybe know you only a little bit for the last few years, do you want to just tell us a little bit about where you are now, what your current role is at the moment?
Yeah, same as I've always really done, different levels. I'm a commercial director at the moment with on a board at equipment distribution business. That's what I'm in, hire and distribution. Always been at that kind of level for the last MD, CEO for the last probably about 20 years now.
Yeah,
it's been a bit of a quick education, but yeah. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and obviously I'm got other support mechanisms that I do. I support people with a bit of coaching. I help people with. I seem to be the person that everyone rings if they want to try and employ
speed dial
one. Speed dial or they want a bit of advice. I don't mind that because I think that's networking and helping out. And I've had loads of advice over the years.
And you're quite well known in the industry. A lot of people know your name from we've worked together several times ourselves, haven't we, over the years?
Yeah.
And obviously you work with Charlie on the recruitment side, don't you? Taking people on and looking for the right staff. So, but your journey. Obviously, you're not born and you become a CEO or an MD. Your journey obviously comes from humble beginnings. So,
yeah,
am I right in saying that when you left school, the world for you started out as a carpenter?
Well, yeah, I ended up as a carpenter. I wasn't meant to be a carpenter. I thought I was going to be the next best West Ham. Tony Cotty. He was at the club at the time, and we were training and playing with them. And I had a bit of a bad injury. My football career kind of derailed a little bit, and I tried to get back into that in the early days. I played semi-pro football for a couple of up-and-coming clubs and then amateur football. I could never really sustain that, and that I think when we talk about the journey, I think my sport is where I get my management style from, and my learning of management styles is really my passion for football and other sports that I've played over the years, and that's how I didn't become a manager by doing a management course. I learned it. I think I learned my best management ideas from coaching my friends when I couldn't play football anymore, and then becoming a manager of the local team. And it was all my mates. And that's a different scenario. It's different, the banter's different in the pub. Yeah. You've got to try and get someone. We had a team for 15 years, and we were at the top of that particular division for many years. And that was the biggest impact, I think, when I look back, apart from people, that was the biggest impact of my management career, was the fact that I learned how, like you do with your friends, which one you need to put an arm around with. That you can have the banter and say, look, Mark, that's not fucking good enough. You're better than that. You fucking idiot. What are you doing? You know what I mean? Get behind the ball, do this, do that. But if I said to you, Charlie, the same, you might take that a little bit personally. So you've got to learn out who to put an arm around with and say how great they are, and who to say, give them a dig in the ribs.
Yeah.
And when you bring that into business, it's similar, isn't it? You've got to learn the personalities. You've got to learn how they learn. You've got to learn that. So I take a lot of that from how I've grown and my style. So, but yeah, I became a carpenter because I think my dad was a carpenter. He was in building, so I thought it was good. I quite enjoyed it at school, and I loved the banter with sport. The banter was exactly the same on site, construction sites. Absolutely brilliant. And when I look back at my time as a carpenter, I remember the crack more than I remember the job that I did.
Yeah,
I don't think, that was a lovely door I swung there, or a nice kitchen we put in there. I do remember some jobs, but basically I remember the crack.
Where were you last year, Mark, when I was trying to do my house up? For God's sake, you should have called him up, shouldn't I?
Absolutely, yeah.
I thought you'd just give us a whole chat about how he supports people. He's left you to do your own carpentry.
I don't volunteer. And did you do it yourself for a reason?
Did you find when you come out of that scenario from the football and you became the carpenter, did you find that lonely initially because you've come out of a team sport?
Yeah. Do you know what was difficult? Do you know what was really difficult about it? Yeah, and I think that's my personality. I look inward on myself if I'm not good at something. I kind of think, if I'm not good at something, it kind of bothers me. And obviously, I ain't going to be good at something starting carpentry. I was reasonably good at football. I was reasonably comfortable in that environment, and then going onto site was difficult. But and as a young lad, it's hard because I always thought to myself, I suppose the entrepreneurial side of me always thought to myself, I could do that better. I should be doing that. And these people have years of experience over me, but my brain still works that.
Was you working for a company, or was you?
Yeah, so I've done an apprenticeship with a company called Harry Neal, which was one of the oldest construction companies in London at the time. They're not about anymore. Okay. There was times where London was absolutely booming for construction. It was like, I worked on Tobacco Dock. There was that's when they employed people directly. It was like 600-700 people on site.
Wow.
And I remember, funny enough, Tobacco Dock, the place got robbed twice. They used to turn up with cash in them days, or you get your cheque and you'd go to the pub and you could sign the back of the cheque, and the pub would cash it in for you.
Right.
I mean, and these were the days where someone would leave site. When my first impression of the building game was lunchtime.
3 miles.
Where is everyone? And then learning when you get to know people, because you're young, you're still 17, you're like, go and have 3 or 4 pints at lunchtime. And then they come back and do the building. This was a major construction site.
Wow.
I'm how old am I now? I'm probably a little bit later than what most apprentices would have started because of the football thing. So I had a little bit of start. So I was probably about 18. I was fucking hammered, wasn't I? 3 or 4 pints sometimes. And I used to work with a couple of Jamaicans, and they'd be like, go and have a fucking sit down over there, boy, and make the tea and stuff like that. Keep away from this bloody chainsaw that we're using or whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
But obviously things changed, and that was the time. And I remember they'd been robbed a couple of times. And NatWest Bank came in. They started. Everyone's money is now going in the bank. Yeah.
Because of the robbery?
Because of too many times in London they were getting hit. You know, people, you know, they would turn up with cash or checks. And
because it's wage day?
Yeah, wage day. Yeah, absolutely. And it didn't bother me. My mum and my sister, I was brought up by, you know, my mum and sister, they both worked in the bank. So I had a bank account since I was probably 15, one of them junior saver bank accounts. So I was used to having it. That was good for me. I didn't want the cheque. I'd have to go to the bloody pub or put the cheque in the bank. It had to take 3 or 4 days. I wanted their money in my bank. But I remember there was absolute chaos. We was all in the canteen, and the girl from NatWest was there, and she was saying, and people were going, I'm not having that. My wife don't know what I earn now. I'm not going to tell her how much money I'm going to earn. And because those were the days. You know, you'd go and you'd put, you know, you'd give your wife probably 200 quid and you'd keep the rest of it, wouldn't you?
Wow.
So yeah, I remember going back, and I'm not that old, and it ain't that long ago, you know, to be fair. But that was the change of the industry starting to get going. But how I started off really was it was one of those. Was it that job? I can't remember. I think it might have been one of the new. We worked at one of the new newspaper places. I think it was Wapping. So it might have been News of the World, and they changed from Fleet Street and they went to Wapping. I don't remember this. Because we used to get eggs thrown at us and stuff like that because we were like working on this job, and they didn't want to move from there to there or something like that. There was some drama going on. And I turned up to the job, and the guy that was my supervisor, if you like, I used to work in twos. The guy, and I was still pretty much an apprentice then, or just coming out. He said, I'm running late or whatever. I've had a row with the wife. You know, I'm not going to be there. Get on the, you know, because we always got on the tube. Go to site. Talk to Bob in the office. He'll give you something to do. So I go to site, standing there with Bob. I've got my tool case and all that. And Bob's like on the phone, and I just noticed there's 2 or 3 seats in the office empty. There's no one else there, and the phone's ringing on. And he just looked at me. He goes, "Are you going to answer that fucking phone or what?" Like that. So I was like, "Yeah, okay." You know, so I went and answered the phone, and I think the guy wanted a load of concrete from phase whatever to whatever. So I wrote it down, blah blah blah. And that was it. I didn't get out of there that week. So that was it. I was in the office, helping him out, doing this and that, you know, and trying to find things. Go and get one of these. Ride on power float. I think, what's a ride on power float? You know?
Yeah.
And trying to find it, and then it was hilarious. I was right next to. Do you remember a company called Oswald Record? I don't know if they're still.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, they used to do the equipment.
So we were right next to them, right? And I didn't know where to go, so I rang my dad, and my dad was old-fashioned. He goes, "Oh, ring the building centre in Goodge Street. Used to be a big building centre there, and you can ask him anything, and he'll tell you." And fair play, I didn't know it was an 0845 number or whatever it was. You know, one of them premium numbers.
Yeah, right.
Like £1.50 a minute. So I'm on the site phone, you know, rang up. And the guy's gone, yeah, we after I said, yeah, I'm looking for a ride on power float. You heard one? He goes on, I'll have to go and find out. And I swear to you, I think he had like a couple of them coconuts. And he like that, going as if he was walking up and down. But he wasn't. He was probably just.
I've got it right.
Keep him on the phone for a couple of minutes, you know, and this is how we make our money. And he told me to go to this company in the end anyway. And I went to this company, he said, no, we don't do it anymore. Go to that company. Went to the company. And we ran the bloody world. And it was also a record that bloody done the ride on power float. So it was right next door to me. I could have just walked next door.
They do the pokers, didn't they, and all that.
But so that was me in it. And then they asked me to go into the office, and I started doing a bit of hire and stuff like that. And then then I was captured one day by Ardmore. You know, that's what happened. I went actually for a job.
You know, if you need someone to fill your role
in something completely different. I was meant to start a really good job on the Monday, and then I got a phone call from a guy called John Evans, who's like the Oracle, you know, Speedy CEO, Dan Evans, his dad, and John was well known in the industry, and he was working at Ardmore at the time, and he rang me up and said, "Come in." I said, "I've got a job Monday. Come in, just come and see us on Saturday morning." And like by the time Saturday morning had finished, I was letting down the other company. I was there, and it wasn't to do with money. It was just I was railroaded by Pat Byrne, Cormac Byrne, and John Evans, and they stuck me in an internal plant department that had nothing, no purchase orders, nothing.
And I just don't think it's always fair.
Just a piece of paper. And then the guy there who knew everything was meant to be going on, supposedly, he said, "I'm going on holiday for a week. So, you've got to learn everything, within a week. Try and learn it yourself." And he didn't come back for 3 weeks, I think.
Really?
No, but he did teach me one lesson. He came back and there was a load of paperwork on his desk and all that, and he just picked it up, threw it in the bin, went to his emails, and he kind of wiped his emails up. And I'm like, "Are you leaving?" He went, "No. If it's that important, they can't get back to me."
Yeah, it's right. I know other people do things like that. Yeah.
So that was a good lesson. Anyway, long story short, we ran that department, and then I was lucky enough. I think one of my biggest influences, in the industry was Pat Byrne. I worked for Pat Byrne. There was Cormac Byrne and his team and everything else, and I worked for Pat. And at the time, Ardmore were a growing contractor. They were in about 40, 50 million at the time. They grew to 450 million in my time that we were there.
Wow.
And they were just a framework contractor, really, but then they became a main contractor, then they done their own development.
Because you did the towers in Chatham, didn't you?
The Chatham Towers, that was one of their businesses, Burn Estates, I think it was. And Ardmore built it. But yeah, they
on your staff at the moment.
What Pat allowed me to do is he just gave me different things. And to me, to you might think they were tasks, but they weren't. They were like companies. Go and look at this shit and sort it out. So we obviously had quite a really good, successful internal plant division then, and then we also had BCL was just a bit of a, I suppose in them days, it was cheap finance. On plant, so you'd probably raise more money against the asset than what it was worth to use some of that cash in the other business. So everyone was at it. It was probably 1%, 2% finance compared to like a loan was about 8%. So yeah, BCL. So then took over BCL, managed all them departments. We had BCL Rail. Became the CEO of BCL Rail. But in between all that, when you're running in businesses, we were setting up aftercare because they were becoming a developer. So I was putting in after sales. So when you've got defects and bits and pieces to try and get that money, set that department. And then the big one was the Chinese. So Ardmore realised early doors that you could get good quality product from China at a reasonable price. And when they're in their tender bid price, I remember sitting with kids and they said, "You work for Ardmore." He goes, "How did they beat us?" I think they beat us a ridiculous amount of millions of pounds. I said, "Because they've got real good control of their supply chain. They're buying things at good quality. As a design and build contractor, you've got to put the product in front of the client and say, look, you've got that, which is £1,000, or you've got that, this is £250, and you can see there's no difference. One's just made in China, one's got a badge on it, and it's probably made in China anyway, So yeah, setting that department up. So learning different things. I think the reason why I got a load of time for Pat is because he allowed me to do things that I probably don't think I would have been able to do, and I would go up like once a week and I would say this is what's going on with this, and he'd go, "Oh, you don't be doing that, do it," he'd give me the 1 or 2 pointers and I'd go back. And the unfortunate style, everyone who knows the industry, and the old Ardmore was quite old school, Irish, not a bully mentality, but a hard, mentality. Because people say to me, 15 years, he was there 15 years, you must be an absolute nutter. But I learned some good things and bad things from that business. I think you do with any business, don't you?
Yeah.
Good and bad things. But yeah, it was a great time of my life because I was able to break my teeth. For a young lad that hasn't really had a university education to then become a CEO of one of the second biggest rail company, really maintenance rail company, plant wise, and BCL, BCL were the Lynch and Flannerys of the day. Yeah, we done motorway work. We done all the motorway work. They were up and coming, and Flannerys came on strong in my last bits and pieces. But we had the 150, 200 machines on a motorway job or a railway job. We were doing before those guys. And
just to go back, Mark, as well with regards to Ardmore. So what role did you start at? Like, what was your role there initially?
I just came in to run an internal plant department.
Really?
Literally, where you as a site would ring up and say, "Can I have a drill mark or can I have a tower crane?"
Yeah.
And I'd go, "Yeah, I'll sort that out." And I had a couple of people, and then that couple of people then turned into that couple of people then turned into like 30 people in the end. As Ardmore had multiple sites.
So it's almost like a managerial role, like a depot manager.
Just a managerial role, really. And I wouldn't even say I was a depot manager at that time.
No.
And I was going as a depot manager in the plant business.
So then
before that was the job on the Monday.
So when you started off like that with a few people and then grew that to 30, what would you put that success down to? Like, in terms, because that's a big step. You start with a few people and then you manage to grow it to around 30.
Look, you're going to make mistakes. Everyone's going to make a mistake, but you've got to allow the person in charge to be in charge. You've got to allow me. And I think, lucky enough, Ardmore was growing so quickly that I don't think Pat really, if I was his direct, I reported to him. By being able to report direct to him, and this is what we can talk about. It's quite an interesting. Actually, I'll talk about it.
I was going to touch on this.
It's the hierarchy of a business. Yeah? The best thing you can do when a business grows, you end up getting a hierarchy. You get a manager to manage that, a manager to get like that. So, at the moment now, your business is growing. The best thing you can do is flatten that. Is to make it, because the people that work for you that actually do the grind on the end of the phone, or the people that are in the pit, they're not stupid people. But our old UK mentality is to try and micromanage people, and we put a supervisor, we make them a manager, and then before you get to the CEO, there's about 4 or 5 people in between. Well, I was lucky at that. He'd say to me, "I'm on this site. Why don't you get down to this site and tell these people why are they hiring plant? There's plant here that's sat here from last week that hasn't moved. Why are they doing that?" Now that was not my responsibility, but he made it my responsibility. So the nice thing was, I wasn't a director at that time or anything, and he's telling me to go and tell somebody. And you've got to have, I suppose, you've got to have that bit of a personality. I suppose I'd never cared about asking a question or fronting someone out. But you've got to go to a construction director that's running a 50, 60 at the time or £100 million contract and say, as a direct, and he's a director and why you got that plant on the site, mate? You're not using it. It's costing you money, blah, blah, blah. And he cut all that bullshit out. So I'd turn up on site sometimes, with the radios are there, and they'd go, "Yeah, Mark Kennedy's on site." You go, give me the first time I heard that, I thought, yeah, okay. He's cut out all that rubbish. So now I've got a level of authority. What it means that I can't be bullshit about it, but it gave me the confidence to be able to say, look, you know why I'm here. Let's look at your plant, but have the backbone as well when you come back and go, well, it's my fucking job. Yeah, but it's not. This is my job, mate, and we will resolve this. Otherwise, you know what will happen. It will be down on site.
Yeah.
And that's how it will go. And so he gave me that kind of, to answer your question, he gave me that confidence to just get on with it. And because I only spoke to him maybe once a week or on the phone if I needed a real important question, it was down to me to make it work. And when it's down to you, and you will make mistakes. There's no doubt about that. But when you've got clarity, and there's nothing above you that really is going to stop you, load of businesses run their businesses by committee, or that email culture. Well, I'm not too sure about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to involve the MD in that email. That's where your business just you need to crack that open. The culture is important. It was a hard culture there. We'll talk about culture in a bit, no doubt, but it's a hard thing. But hard to work there. But it was easy to just get on and do things.
So you feel that the one of the biggest things that perhaps the freedom and the responsibility that you were given there, you feel enabled you to grow and develop as a person. So do you feel that a mistake that companies may make today is they might be micromanaging without knowing they're micromanaging, and they're trying to control so much stuff that you're actually developing robots?
Well, they don't know. They don't know how to make the main thing the main thing. Do you get me?
Yeah.
There's a couple of problems that businesses have. First of all, what is your main thing? And is it the best it could be? And if it's not, why are you thinking about doing other things? Diversity is one thing, but only if you're being dragged into that. The more people you employ and the more communication you have, the more ideas come on the table. The more people want to change how you do things, and they want to say, "Oh, you thought about that?" You know, you in recruitment, we just do permanent placements.
Yeah.
And I come in and go, "Oh, you thought about doing temp? It's real good. Do you know what? You know, the reason why I'm not telling you, Charlie, is because I could get 500 men out with my customers." And you go, "Okay," and then you already your time managing me and managing your now permanent team is split.
Yeah.
So your qualities they're split.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with diversity, but you've got to get it right.
You got to get the main thing right first. That's what we've
concentrate
always been.
on the main thing.
Yeah.
You know, and look, the hardest thing when you go into any company, and this is what's become my role. So you also, what's my role now? My role really is I go into companies. This is how it's developed. You know, and I seem to go in there because they want to make some kind of change. Normally, they want to grow. And the biggest thing I find, you know, I don't know. I suppose there's three things I could probably give you what I find in businesses. Change. Nobody wants change. Nobody likes change. They're happy to do that circle of we've always done it that way. You know,
I understand that.
Same old thinking is the same old result, so isn't it?
Yeah.
And they don't really know some of these people, especially entrepreneurs. They can't see the wood for the tree sometimes, you know, because entrepreneurs can't. And I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, successful and unsuccessful, where they just can't seem to concentrate on the one thing, and they've got so many different things and ideas in their head. And they try and make it perfect, which you can't do if you're going to bring any product to, you know. I think it was the guy who owns, I was listening to the other day, who owns Snapchat, who said the biggest mistake he made was creating another product that took 18 months because they were trying to get it perfect. And by the time the 18 months came about, it was not good business. You know, by the time they'd finished the product.
Oh, I see.
And I think you need customer feedback quickly. You know, so don't try and get it perfect. Just try and get it out there. Get your customer feedback and then make your changes as your business goes. But when you're going into an established company, people don't like change. But the funny thing about that is that they all complain about the same thing, which is a lack of communication. So if we are to communicate with each other, then we need to have some change. And I suppose the three things I would say to people is, you know, I can't remember who coined the phrase, but someone said that only wet babies want change. You know, no one else in your business wants change, do they? They fight against that, and they go through this denial curve. And it's how you break that down and how you get people to buy into the change without you even initiating the change in the first place, because you're trying to feed it into them. And it's I'll just say, the other thing is, what I said is, that I would give is, the second thing is confidence. You've got to have confidence. And the best way to have confidence is preparation. Yeah, the more you prepare, funny enough, the better and easier it is to not only pass that message over, but to, you know, and if you're a CEO, take that change word, you know. I didn't coin this as well, but it's change equals opportunity, CEO. Remember that?
Oh, right, okay, yeah, like that.
And I like that kind of thing, yeah. So it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to do things differently, better, understand, customer. But I think the biggest thing is keep it simple. Keep your business simple, easy. If it's easy for your people to sell that product, or more importantly, the customers to come into the shop or come online, whatever way it is, the Amazon theory, it's easy. Why do we use Amazon? We don't even look at the price, do we? We see that little blue tick. We go, bang, that's the one I want. Top of the list.
Get it tomorrow.
If it's rubbish, make a call or press a button. They don't even argue about it. They don't want you to send it back to them. They don't want it. And they just refund you. And you get another one or whatever. But the simplicity as well is the communication. I can't lead you if you don't understand me. That's the message, really. If you don't understand, how can you lead people? If you're people, how can you lead them? They don't know what they're doing. And the biggest mistake I've seen all my life in every business is the lack of onboarding, the lack of setting what is expected of you when you come and work for me. You're in sales, Mark. Did you know we make a 16% margin on our product, and therefore to pay for you, I need you to do a minimum £500,000, and that's just to pay for you.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh. So to make money, I want 1.5 million, Mark. I want to make it worthwhile for, I want that kind of turnover to make that kind of profit. So I need to make that kind of, I need to make something out of you. And then a lot of people would go, £1.5 million worth of sales a year. Don't know if I do that.
How did you find transitioning?
And then you wouldn't make that mistake. And I think slowing down, slow to hire, quick to fire is one of the terms I've heard a few times.
Yeah,
slow down the interview process. Because the people are the most important. There's no doubt about it. There's no way that I could have done what I've done without the people. If you could, you wouldn't need them, would you? No. You've got to remember, as a leader of a business, you shouldn't have to be skilled in every element. You should just know a little bit about everything, enough to counter argument. But why am I going to take on a financial director if I've got to do the books and screw? I need to know what's going on. I need to understand that.
They say a lot about employing people that are better than you in those given tasks,
100%.
right? And I think
that's what I've said before to you guys. I think I've said it on here, where if you want to be a good manager, right, let's start from being a supervisor, manager. Right, if you want to be a good manager, you've got to find someone better than you to do your job. And I think everyone should, if they're getting promoted, they should be part of the bloody employment interview process, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
As a standard.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing something better than me, I don't have to worry about you. I can now step up, helicopter view, look at what's going on.
I think the thing that people struggle with in this day and age, especially in recruitment, is sometimes when when we put someone forward and that hiring manager feels intimidated by that person that they're bringing through, when actually they don't see it like, well, that person's going to make me look really good potentially. If I've made that decision on that person,
keep hold of that, because that's what makes me really important,
big time.
But it doesn't. What makes you really important is its success, because the other pet hate of mine with that kind of thing is where a guy comes up to you and says, I want to, we'll need another £5,000. Let's not turn around and think for 1 minute, if you own a business, that's never going to happen. That you can employ someone at 10 grand and they're never going to want a pay rise. That's going to happen. But what we do is we think, well, what am I going to get for that £5,000 mark? Yeah, Charlie, what am I going to get for that? What are you going to give me for that £5,000? And you're thinking, hold on a minute, Charlie's top of the pops here, So what we do, and traditionally we've done, we say, okay, we'll make you a manager. Or you'll say, I want some progression, and I want £5,000. I want to be a manager. And we would turn around and say, okay, we'll give you the £5,000. Don't want to lose Charlie. We'll make you a manager. So now we'll make you responsible of Mark. So now what we just said earlier, you've now watered down what you actually do, what you're really good at. So I've lost probably my best salesman just to look after my second best salesman.
Yeah.
And and I haven't turned around to you and said, do you know what it's like to be a manager? What do you need for me to support you to be a successful manager? And you'd probably say, well, I've never managed anyone before in my life. Well, that's an interesting concept, isn't it? To make someone a manager overnight just because you've justified the fact that you're giving him £5,000. Because when the financial director walks into you and says, oh, you're paying the wages a bit high. Oh, yeah? Okay. Well, should we cut the management team? Yeah, let's cut the management team. So we just cut out Charlie because we don't need Charlie anymore as a manager. We can just work with you. But he was our best salesman.
Yeah, now he's gone.
Now diluted, and he's now got our competition as a salesman, by the way, because they don't need a manager.
Yeah,
that's the.
So do you think there? And this is an interesting question. Do you think there's a lot of errors in business through two things? Fear, well, mainly fear for the change, because you talked a lot about change, and fear for their own job.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that, but I also feel that. Owners or managing directors or directors of business have to understand why they're employing that person. The amount of times that people employ people because they feel they're under pressure themselves and they really need someone to help them support that. But then they bring that person in and they want them to just tell them what to do, and then they want to, and I'm not saying initially because you need to learn about the business and that's helpful, but then you've got to let that guy go, haven't you? You've got to let that person get on with that job. And business owners especially in small, they're worried about letting that go. So because they, and you find that predominantly with companies that have been going for a long time. I'm not saying it's the same, but you've got a situation in your business where your father was the owner of the business. Now you've come over, take it over. There's going to be that situation where you're going to want to go, look, get out of the way.
Yeah.
This is the way of the world now.
Yeah.
Because there's a little stat I wrote down here because it's quite interesting. Because you're now next generation business. So. The 7 major tech companies in the world, the Amazons, the Googles, the Facebook, the big 7, the magnificent 7, let's call them, they attributed to pre-COVID $5 trillion turnover contribution to the economy, or whatever you want to call it, which is now 17 trillion.
What, post?
Yeah, 17 trillion. Now,
that's insane.
What that tells you is that the world's gone. Tech takes a lot of time, yeah? So everyone thinks that AI has just turned up, bang. Someone from space has just given us a message and bang, it's gone. It isn't. AI, if you go back to AI, has probably been around for about 10 to 12 years, probably playing about with early AI 15 years ago. And so tech takes a long time to come, and then it just takes off, doesn't it? And we've seen that, and it's going to now with AI probably it's gone to go. So all I know, if you're going to learn, if you think you're not going to learn everything, no, you need to be prepared as a business owner to learn every day and learn that the changes in technology is so quick. They're talking about security, can't keep up. IT security cannot keep up with the AI. Yeah. Because as soon as you create a stop for someone making some kind of play on you, they're already ahead of the game.
Well, it's an interesting concept because they said the other day that they've now, I can't remember if it's the Americans or the Chinese, they've actually got AI to do 2 things. 1, replicate itself.
Yeah.
And number 2, improve its own code. Right now, when you get to a situation where AI is improving its own code, how many times do you do that a day, for instance?
Yeah.
So then the people that manage that, how do you keep up with a process that doesn't eat or drink or sleep and can improve its own code?
Well, exactly. So you've got, as an owner or manager of a business, you've got to embrace it. You've got to learn every day. Don't panic yourself about, I don't understand AI or I don't understand how to use, but your business needs to be prepared for change. I still have been in businesses where they're still using an Excel spreadsheet. They haven't gone to any kind of, and they're turning over millions of pounds, and they're still using an Excel spreadsheet. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you're not making it easy, and small changes to make it easy, the most important people in your business, the most important people in your company are your staff. They're not actually your customers. I think Branson said that, not me. It's your if your staff ain't happy, your customers definitely ain't happy.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and we make it so difficult sometimes, and for our staff, and then you wonder about the culture, of that business. Everyone talks about that. You get the culture right, you thrive. Well, even the bigger your business gets, it's really hard to hold on to that defining culture, and you've really got to drive it in. I think there's more when you're a bigger business. I think it's more important to have that head of people, not HR, somebody who's culturally aware of what needs to be driven every day into the business, because you grow your business. Let's take Path. You grow that business, and then you make an acquisition. Well, as soon as you make an acquisition into that, maybe because you say, temps, Mark, temps, so it's a good idea, but let's buy somebody. You're bringing a different culture into that business, aren't you?
Completely different business, and you're trying to merge the two.
The word reverse takeover, probably I first heard it when Langs and O'Rourke's came together. Now, O'Rourke bought Langs. Langs was the billion turnover business, wasn't it? I think they bought them for whatever they bought them for. But they called that a reverse takeover because the culture, there was so many more people. The way that they had to run that business was based around really what Langs did more than what O'Rourke did. So you've got to be really careful how that happens. And that happens quite often. We talked about Raoul and BCL. When BCL was a bigger business when Quattro Plant bought bigger than Quattro, and they bought them, it changed the business overnight. More or less doubled or tripled that business. And that comes with it, doubled or tripled the staff that have got influence in the way they've worked. But culture's the main thing. I think where we forget, we onboard somebody and we go, there's your job. That's your job description. You know what you're doing anyway, I'll just crack on. And you don't even know where the toilets are really, do you? And you're cracking on, and you've got loads of different questions and answers and bits and pieces. And it makes it so stressful. So you're not actually doing the role that I think you're doing, because you're spending 50% of your time trying to find out where to get a price for this, where to get a specification for that, where to do this and that. And people then think, well, what have you done in the last month, Mark? Well, I spent bloody 3 weeks trying to find out how to get hold of the IT department. And then that's not a good culture, and it's, the culture has to come from the top. I remember sitting with a few companies in my time and they're going, what does Coca-Cola say? I say, look, just start with your core values. How can you have a roadmap from A to B? Every roadmap, wouldn't it be, if it was an A to Z, it would just be like this board, wouldn't it? Just straight lines. I've got to go to Manchester. Straight line. It's not a straight line, is it? You've got to go over there, you've got to go around, you've got to cut around there. Then sometimes there's a bit of road work, so you've got to get off the road. Business is the same, isn't it? There's no, if it was as simple as getting from here to there, then we would all be doing it. We would all be successful. So how can you row to there if you can't get all your team to row in the same direction? And first of all, you've got to, from the beginning, you've got to create what your core values are. What type of team you want? What type of people do you want? What kind of atmosphere do you want? And culture's all different. If your culture's all F and C's and that's how it is, mate, bollocks, and you're making £1 billion a year, who am I to say that's not a good culture? If you can find people that want to work in that culture. Yeah. But you base your core values on what you want to try and get your message over. And the core values, if you've got them right, means that you will spend that time with that person onboarding them correctly. Because as you know, Charlie, you've given me a good guy in Mark, and he's fantastic. I've interviewed him. He's the best thing I've ever seen. And 6 months later, I'm saying, what's the matter with that geezer? Rubbish. But he ain't rubbish, is he? Because he's been successful elsewhere. We've made him rubbish somewhere along that line. Yeah, because we've either changed directions. Entrepreneurs are worse at that. You know, you go, oh, change, no, do this. Have you thought about that? Because they're trying to do so many other things. They're drawing cash out of their business, no doubt, for doing other things, and they're now relying on you to have doubled it up.
Onboarding is insane. It's such a, you know, it's such an important thing, you know, especially in recruitment. You know, it unfortunately doesn't happen too much because we try to, you know, educate. You know, if we've got like an issue with someone, a company that we feel might not onboard a candidate in the best way, we will tell them. And if they've left for a particular reason, then we'll find out why that is, and we will try to offer, you know, for what it's worth, some of our advice in terms of that onboarding. Yeah. It's fundamental. Like you said, they've been successful somewhere else. So they have worked hard somewhere else. It is potentially the culture they haven't mixed with or something along those lines. If you know,
the culture has to become, every director should be a coach, should be a proper coach. That's what you're there to do, to coach people, not to dog people, but to coach people and to make them better. You've got to find out what's wrong. You've got to make sure that people understand what is expected of them, and you've got to give them every tool and break down every barrier to make it as easy as possible to do that job. Yeah. So, but what we make a mistake of, sorry, Mark, what we make a mistake of is we then put that person in place. Yeah. Maybe we've given them a good induction, whatever. End of the week, the manager will spend, like the end of the weekly meeting, for example, we'll spend an hour talking about why has it all gone wrong. Because we won't give people 10 minutes every morning or on the Monday just to sit around and have a coffee. What's your bud and what's your thorn? You know, what's good and what's bad from last week? Charlie, you know, what did you do there? We've spent now 10 minutes, 15 minutes having a cup of coffee, talking about the problems we're going to have. We've resolved the issues, hopefully, before they've got to the end of the week and some managers shouting and screaming. So we'll spend more time talking about why we're not doing something right, rather than less time just working together as a family, as a team, to try and resolve any issues that we might have.
And in your opinion, because we often see on social media now, LinkedIn's a big one, we often see a lot of talk about this toxic culture. You know, the lines are flashed up, such as people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad managers. So I suppose in your experience, and you're probably quite well placed to answer this, what advice would you give a manager or a director or an owner even? How would you spot toxic culture? And equally, how do you pinpoint where it's coming from?
Yeah, it's interesting. Toxic culture is there because people are allowed they don't know the rules. They don't know, really. You haven't set the expectation at the beginning. You know, we don't talk to people like this, or this is how we feel about that.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't like our values, you know, these are our values, you know, and you should be employing some of the questions that you should be asking should be around your core values of your business when you're employing someone. And if they don't like those, then they can go and work somewhere else. You're better off doing that at interview stage than finding out that in there. But he's the best salesman in the world. We've had this, haven't we? He's the best salesman in the world. But he's so toxic that people don't want to work in that business anymore.
Yeah.
So if it's a one-man business, then fine. You know, make him the business. But you've got to cut that kind of thing out. And a lot of it's to do with people don't know how to there's a difference, isn't there, between management and leadership. They don't know the difference. They think that, you know, you manage situations, you lead people, don't you? You don't, you know, the management side of something is where you can throw the shit at me and I'm hopefully got the experience to be able to support you in working out what we're going to do about it. Not to tell you you're an absolute tool because, you know, you haven't thought like me, you know?
Yeah.
The leadership side is if you know, I'm probably the worst one to say because the F word comes out of my word, everything, but it's not directed as you're an arsehole. I'm not that kind of person. I've lost my. I'm not saying I've never lost my shit in meetings or anything like that, because I have. But everyone has, and that could be down. But the amount of times that I've had to go back, and a few times I've had to go back and apologise. That was just the way it was. But I think you've got to have an example, haven't you? You've got to be able to be there for the person and give them the right solution, and stop making it hard and putting the barriers up. And some people like to watch people fail. And as managers, I would be looking at my management team going, why are you the common denominator here? He's a great person. He's been here 20 years. Is he part of the reason why we can't grow or can't change? I say there's a line, isn't there? Once you step over that line of a manager, you're a director. You've got to do certain things in a business that you may not personally agree with. But as a collective board, you've decided that that's what we're going to do. Everyone's got to wear a pink hat today, and that's the way it's got to be. And you might not agree with that, but you've got to stand on that line and say, look, But if you communicate correctly, and this is where my map line goes through. How many people in businesses have you been in fill in a piece of paper? That's all they're doing, admin. The old days, just to give it to that person. And they've never been told what they're doing. There's businesses that me and you have worked for that all the staff didn't even know all the product range that we did or what they actually do. The customers didn't, We worked for a business that some customers didn't know that they run lorries and plant. At one point. Yeah, there was a different customer base, wasn't there?
Yeah.
That changed, obviously, but, they're a very successful business. But there was a point, wasn't there, where people didn't know. So if the customer don't know, then we don't know, do we? And look, we sell these microphones. This is why we sell these microphones. This is where we want to be in 2 years' time. What's wrong with that? This is where we are. Now, this is where we want to be. We need you to help us get to there and tell the story. The core values start the story.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, and this is only me saying it, and you've said it now. I think one of the biggest challenges in business, and it's interesting that you've identified it instantly there, is that people don't know what the plan is.
Yeah.
From the guy in the workshop, from the guy in the office, from the guy out on the road, whoever it is, whatever your job is, people do not know the ultimate plan. Because if you don't know the plan, what part do you play in the plan?
Exactly. And my thing that I banged on about, I think I said it on another pod the other day. My sport, going back to my sporting, I love sport more than I was good at it, you with me, but I understand the philosophy of teamwork because of that. In the 70s, Cruyff and all that, and the Ajax, they came up with a terminology, total football. And I've heard this thing where people said that total football was about being able to play in every position. And it's not about being able to play in every position. So they took, one example is they're taking Dennis Bergkamp, who was in the Ajax reserve team or young youth team, and playing him at the back for 2 or 3 games. Everyone thought they were trying to make him into a defender. Now, what the guy was actually doing was trying to show him what it was like to be a defender and to understand what a defender was. So if you take that into business, it's quite funny, isn't it? So if you set your business up as a football team and you've got your you've got your Gary Nevilles like and your David Beckham, yeah? And you just train them. And you don't train with everyone else. They don't know what the hell's going on. So when Gary does 2 or 3 passes back and forward to Beckham doesn't know what to do, does he? He's throwing that ball in blind. He don't know who's going to upset. He don't know if the man's ready for it. He don't know anything. So if you take that as a business philosophy, I'm not saying take all your salesmen and get them to work with credit control or work in credit control. But they should understand why credit control are there. Because I think Don Moore brought it up, is the clash, wasn't it, between the sales and, say, the credit control.
He did indeed.
You're on stop. Why am I on stop? You're ringing me now. Charlie's put them on stop. You're ringing me. Mark, where? So I've now got to make a stupid decision because I want the business. And I'm not really there day to day, as in like doing what you're doing and what you're doing. So I'm not in the grind of it. So straight away, you're throwing it back up to me to lose the responsibility from you. Yeah? But if you knew the rules from the start, And if the rules were, if someone's on stop, ring Mark Kennedy and he'll get you off stop, then fine.
Yeah.
But if the rules are, if they're on stop and that's tough, Mark, you're going to have a conversation with your customer and say, to be honest with you, you're not a customer till you paid for it. You know the old A-plant saying that you used to have?
Yeah.
It's not a hire until it's paid for.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you have that conversation and say, look, I'm working with you, mate, but you've got to pay that bill. Working with Charlie, why they've got that problem, resolving that problem. Well, the reason is they haven't paid this, there's a bit of damage. Straight away, you know how to resolve that bit of damage. The customer might turn around like they've said to me in the past, we don't understand your invoicing, mate. It's absolute rubbish. Because, we set up our businesses to suit how we think they should run rather than how the customer might need them to run, how they need to be billed and all that. We don't spend enough time doing that. Salesmen, what are they like? Oh, yeah, 60 quid, lowest price 40 quid. You can guarantee you're going to get 40 quid. And then you're going to scream and shout when they're not paying that 40 quid. So not only have they got the cheap price, they're not paying it, and you're now putting pressure on us to resolve that issue. That's a fair thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what goes on.
But the rules haven't been set correctly. And managers are just too quick to bend and break because you're strong personality. And then the chaos subsumes. And then you've got a bad culture. You've got a culture that you feel that I've not been listened to. I'm trying to do my job. He's overridden me, Whereas the culture should be communication between you two, shouldn't it? Mm. You should be aligned. You should both know why you do that job. The whole story.
Because if the goal's aligned, the salesman would perhaps know that they're coming up to their credit limit. When that order comes in, he might say, I've just done a pre-check.
Yeah.
And if you was to place that order, you'd go over your limit and end up on stop.
Yeah. The famous Kennedy, Cape Canaveral story, president goes to, trying to get man on the moon, breaks rank, goes and talks to a guy sweeping and cleaning the bathrooms, talks to him and says, and what's your role here? And he said, my role is to help get a man on the moon. That's about
it's a
story.
great
It's a kind of the same thing. That the culture there was he felt, which is really important, he was part of the whole thing.
I've not heard that before. That's really
so he sat there watching that bloke get on the moon with his family, and time to go. Do you know what? When he's talking to his grandchildren ain't probably thinking, oh, did you clean the toilets at Cape Canaveral? They're thinking, oh, he was there.
Yeah.
He helped I was part of that team.
But even still, the fact that he was cleaning the toilets and he believed that he was part of the team and he was part of the team is amazing.
That was,
he's cleaning up everything.
If he weren't doing
that astronaut, that manager, that whatever, he's got nothing in his way to get to where he needs to get to. He's got a clean kitchen area to eat and relax in. He's got a nice toilet area to relax. And he's not worrying about that.
Yeah.
So therefore, he's focused.
But it's like do you remember the Irish bin company, the City Bin Company? Do you remember that? Yeah. And I don't know if you know the stories. They in Ireland, as I understand it, customers, residents have a choice of who they use for their bins.
It's like your electricity. You can choose your bin company to go.
You can choose. Yeah. So this guy's got a company called the City Bin Company, which is quite famous now, by the way. And someone said to him, "Oh, are these all your bin men?" Like that, right? And he turned around and went, "No." He said, "They're all in customer service." Right? And he said, "I don't employ bin men." And he said that the best guys that he's got collecting the bins, he attributed to, I would take a waiter or someone that's served tables in a restaurant, I'd take them all day long. Yeah. Because my business I'm not a bin man, we don't have bin men, but I've got lots of customer service people.
Yeah, and the other thing he done, which was very unique, which I thought was really good, was he created an academy. I'm not saying everyone should create an academy, but he created an academy so people could easily leave his company. And that sounds really strange, doesn't it? But let's look about the type of trades, the things we're doing. People, if we like it or not, sometime in their life want to make a change. That might be because of their relationship. Working for me might suit you at that moment in time, but there's going to be a moment in time that you might not even want to work move away. You might want to, just better yourself, and there's not an opportunity with my company to do that. There's loads of different reasons why people want to leave. Now, yes, we always want to strive to keep people for 20 or 30 years. But sometimes it's good for themselves to get out and do something different. One of the last businesses I worked for, there was one department, and it's always IT, isn't it? Was stuck so much in their ways that they were so antiquated, so that they didn't really realise when a new person comes into the team and go, well, I was able to do that with my other company. Why can't I do that here? Oh, the security, reasons, and there's always a blocker, isn't there? And you're like, well, you probably need to take that person, even put them on a busman's holiday and say, go and have a look at other companies, how they're doing it. Well, it's time to move on, mate. But people will leave. So his philosophy was quite simple. I'm a customer care person, or bin man, as we're not going to call it, but I want to be a chef. So he would encourage that person to learn them skills. That person would leave that company knowing that he had helped them do that. So straight away you've created a raging fan. Very important for social media, isn't it?
Yeah.
But understanding that somebody in that kind of job, or in an administration job, it could be anything, might not want to do that for the rest of their life.
No.
But if you support them to better themselves, then not only are they going to recommend people to go and work for you, they're going to recommend customers, and every time you come up and go, oh, that's a great, see that certificate on the wall there, that was because of them.
That's amazing.
I remember sitting there listening to that guy, and one bloke would, why would you want to put all that money into somebody for them to leave? But they're going to leave. If we accept the fact that, if you've got the culture right, people might not want to leave, and you get a great team, but one or two people are going to want to leave. So if you can't support them for their goal, within your organisation, why can't you support them to leave your organisation?
You're going to have
I know that sounds
people,
really,
people wanting to join, right?
But
so,
because, and you might end up, there's a thing that, and I'm writing as well, and everyone goes on about A players and stuff like that. But imagine, so we call it about an A player who's the premium product of the person. The productive fit is great, personality is great, everything's there, understands. But can you imagine getting to a point in your business where you've got 20 people employed and they're all Lionel Messi? What are you going to win? Yeah?
Yeah.
You might score 5 or 6 goals, but you're going to ship 5 or 6 goals, and then eventually you're going to ship 10 goals and only get 5 or 6 on a bad day. So you need that kind of rotation of people in a way. I'm not saying that, the churn is important because that sets your culture.
I suppose you get fresh people come in.
Yeah, you need fresh people to come in, and you need to give them the opportunity to move up. And if you get to so many people, you need to be able to, at that point, if you're not going to diversify into the next best thing, then you've got to allow those people to move on and go and do that for somebody else. And then and you can bring through people, especially if you're a small, you call family-run type of business, you probably don't want to be the next Microsoft. But if you want to be the Microsoft, then you've got to allow them to do. But you've got to allow people to have the freedoms. You've got to allow them to be. There's got to be a set of rules, but there's, and that comes into culture. And it's hard because people are hard, aren't they? People are hard work. They always feel that they're not getting recognised for this or that,
I think it's some great insights there, Mark. And I think ultimately, hopefully, there's going to be a lot of people out there that are in at management level or even director level that will hopefully take a lot of value from what you've said. So fair play. I think
some good stuff today. Yeah, really good.
100%. Fair play. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks.
Well, thanks for that, Mark. That was really good, and a lot of advice, a lot of information for people in business. So I'm sure it's gone down.
Make sure you buy the book, Mark. When it
comes. See, I knew that's coming. There's a book coming. I know this.
No, fair play.
The opinions expressed within this podcast are solely the individuals and do not reflect the opinions and beliefs of the sponsors or its affiliates.